Done.
UFC Fight Night Rozenstruik versus Almeida. Before we get to any of the fights that we are going to recap,
We're not
tell
going
me
to recap
about,
any of them.
excuse me, not recap,
We're not
preview.
that good at this job. We don't know exactly what's going to happen.
Tell me about any fights or fighters that you guys want to spotlight.
The only one for me that I would really want to spotlight is the Brian Battle one. Brian Battle versus Gabriel Green. It's a fight I think that Brian Battle definitely needs to win. He didn't have the greatest showing in his last fight, but he's had some good momentum up until that point. So hopefully he can pick up that momentum in this fight again.
I agree. I like that fight. It's a tough one to evaluate. I will spotlight Cody Stamann and Douglas Silva de Andrade. I really like this fight. I think both of these dudes are guys who have enough talent to cause problems for like ranked fighters in this bantamweight division. They're both really good. Stamann is a great wrestler. Andrade is a great scrambler. Andrade carries the power, but Stamann has kind of been improving the boxing. I'm very intrigued to see who comes out of that one.
Okay, let us begin now with this fight got bumped from the main card to the featured bout on the prelims on ESPN and ESPN Plus in the welterweight division. Matt Brown taking on Court McGee. Both guys are absolute veterans of the sport and of the UFC. Matt Brown, his record stands at 23-19. Court McGee 21-11. Omar, start us off. Give us your pick. Matt Brown versus Court McGee.
Dude, this is a very tough fight to pick, man. I got to be honest. I see paths to victory for both of these guys. Matt Brown has got the elbows, absolutely a savage approach to the game. Likes to push the pace, likes to come forward, likes to try to drown their opponents moving backwards and things like that. The pressure is pretty crazy. But Court McGee has a very similar approach. I think the main difference between the two is Court McGee tends to use his wrestling a lot more than Matt Brown does. But the idea of the pushing forward and kind of smothering the distance and kind of trying to drown the opponent in backwards movement, I think the approach is going to be very similar. So at the end of the day, to me, it's about who has the better approach in that. And I want to say Court McGee has made enough improvements in the striking game where his grappling might actually play a nice hand in striking and countering Matt Brown with his grappling. So I'm going to go with Court McGee here. I don't think that there's going to be a finish here, though I wouldn't be surprised with the way both of these guys can throw. But I'm going to say that Court McGee is able to edge out 2 rounds. Probably very close fight, but I'm going to give it to Court McGee, unanimous decision.
Mark?
All right, Matt Brown is an almost 2-1 dog here. He is plus 180. Court McGee minus 220. I think it's a lot closer than that. I don't think this is an easy fight to pick. Sometimes Court can eat damage and keep moving, and if he can do that here, he's probably going to find a way to drag Matt Brown down, and Matt Brown can sometimes get himself in trouble underneath a wrestler. But on the flip side, Court McGee can also sometimes get hurt with one big shot, and Matt Brown knows how to fucking hurt people. So I'm going to go with the dog here. I'm going to say that there are too many moments that happen in the clinch, and Matt Brown is silly dangerous in the clinch. So I'll say a big clinch elbow from Matt changes this fight and leads to a finish. Matt Brown, round 2 knockout.
Okay. Yeah, this is going to be a war between these two vets, and I'll just make this one quick. I'm going to say Matt Brown by unanimous decision in a bloodbath between these two guys. And is this a retirement fight for both or either?
Not that I've heard.
No.
Okay.
It's just probably Lawler.
Okay. Moving up now into the main card, we have in the welterweight division, Alex Morono taking on Tim the Dirty Bird Means. So, Tim Means, the 39-year-old out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. He is 32-14 with 1 draw and 1 no contest. Of his 32 wins, 19 have come by way of knockout. Add another 5 to that by submission. Coming off back-to-back losses to Kevin Holland and Max Griffin. He will be standing across from Alex the Great White Morono, 32 years old, out of Houston, Texas, 22-8 with 1 no contest. He is also coming off of a loss against Santiago Ponzinibbio. Mark, start us off.
Okay, same exact underdog odds as Matt Brown. Tim Means is plus 180. Alex Morono is minus 225 as the favorite. 3 inches of height and 3 inches of reach on the dog side for Tim Means, which is interesting. I know Alex Morono's on a hell of a run. One Santiago Ponzinibbio punch notwithstanding. Other than that, a hell of a run. And I'm going to pick him here. But I do think Tim Means is live. You have to be very legit to beat Tim Means. And I think Alex Morono is that, but I don't know that I'm 100% convinced of it just yet. So I think Tim Means has avenues to make this fight interesting, but I will go with Morono in the end. He got to have a training camp, which is nice. The guy's on short notice all the time. So I'm sure that's a plus for Alex Morono. And he just seems really dialed in as of late on understanding his own game. So I'll say he lands more often, keeps the higher work rate up, and does enough to take the cards over Tim Means.
Let's see. I am going to be taking Tim Means in this one. I think Alex Morono is a tough as nails kind of guy, but I think Tim Means, even in his advanced age, wow, look at me. I think his overall talent is going to outshine Alex Morono's toughness, and I think Tim Means is going to walk away with a UD. A UD. Okay, light heavyweight division.
Wait, Omar's got a pick.
Oh, my bad. Omar, please go.
I think Alex Morono is a smart fighter, man. I don't think he gets enough credit. I think he's not very flashy. You know, he doesn't have a very intimidating look to him. Doesn't talk a ton of shit on the mic. And so I think he goes very under the radar in that respect. But Alex Morono is a dog, man. He's a dog. He comes to fight every time. And he's a very, very smart fighter in the way that he approaches different fights and makes adjustments. I think Tim Means has kind of been the same fighter for the last 10 years or so. And it's not to say that that's a bad thing. His approach to the game has always been very, straightforward. Just try to beat the shit out of somebody in any way possible. I think Morono is going to be a little bit more tactical in there. I thought he was winning that Ponzinibbio fight up until he wasn't.
For sure.
I think Morono is going to be able to get it done here. I'm going to go with Morono here by unanimous decision.
Okay, light heavyweight division. Carlos Ulberg taking on Ihor Potieria. Ulberg, 7 wins, 1 defeat. Out of, where is he out of? Is he out of, yes, Auckland, New Zealand. The Black Jag is his nickname. Of his 7 wins, 5 have come by way of knockout. He's riding a 3-fight win streak coming into this weekend. Potieria, the duelist, the 26-year-old out of Ukraine, 6'3", 19-3, 9 knockouts, 6 subs, also coming off of a win over Shogun Rua. Omar, start us off this time.
Yeah, so the win against Shogun Rua, it's a nice name, but it's coming off of the back of a career that hasn't even looked the same in recent memory. I can't even remember when the last time Shogun really looked like Shogun. So I don't take too much away from that, unfortunately. Carlos Ulberg, though, watching his fights, another one who hasn't really had fights with guys who have some name value, although obviously he fought Nzechukwu, who fought last weekend, who we touched on, lost to Nzechukwu, has fought, Nigamarianu, but I still think Carlos Ulberg needs a name that's going to have a little bit of name value. I don't even think that Potieria is really that guy either. But I do think that Carlos Ulberg is good enough to get a win off of this one. So I'm going to go with Ulberg here by TKO round 2.
Mark.
Ulberg is a large favorite. He is minus 430. Ihor Potieria is plus 320. There is 1 inch of height and 2 inches of reach on the Ulberg side. And there is me being very sold on Carlos Ulberg and not very sold on Ihor Potieria. So this is not a tough one for me. Give me Carlos Ulberg all day. I think he is better where Ihor wants to be fighting. I think he picks Potieria apart and eventually hurts him and finishes him. I will say Carlos Ulberg, round 2 knockout.
Nice.
I mostly agree. I think that Ulberg is legit. And I'm going to say Ulberg is going to knock him out in the very first round.
Oh, damn. Damn. All right.
Okay. Welterweights, Daniel Rodriguez taking on Ian Garry.
Getting sexy now.
Yes, baby. Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod, the 36-year-old out of California, 17-3 as a pro with 8 knockouts, looking to get back in the win column after losing to Neil Magny by submission back in November. He will be taking on the quick turnaround for relatively quick for Ian the Future Garry, the 25-year-old out of Dublin, Ireland, undefeated 11-0 with 6 knockouts. Mark, start us off. Give us the odds and your pick.
So I debated on this pick. In my mind, I'm like picking a really close matchup. Not sure which way to go. And I hadn't added the odds until Omar was doing the Sphere. That's when I went and grabbed the odds for all these fights. And I'm amazed by what the odds are.
Is it Ian? Ian, I would imagine, is the favorite, if we're being honest. And I would assume he's probably more than a 2-1 favorite.
Dude, he's minus 310.
That's I was thinking 250, but 310 is.
Daniel Rodriguez is plus 240 as an underdog. I literally thought this fight was going to be like someone's minus 120. Like, I thought it was going to be like a pick 'em fight.
Nah.
I never, ever saw that line coming. Okay. 2 inches of height on the Ian Garry side. The reach is the same. It's hard. I'm going to go Ian Garry. I know how good D-Rod is. I know that could end up looking bad, but I just feel like Ian Garry is really perfecting his game as of late. I know he's not walking through dudes or anything, but I also feel like his game is the kind of game that can translate no matter who's across from him, striking-wise, unless it's like the absolute elite. So I think he is going to look just as good striking against D-Rod as he has against his other dudes, even though D-Rod is a higher level. And I do think D-Rod's style is still one where Ian Garry can shine at times. I think he's a little, not wooden, but he's a little straightforward in his game, and I think Gary's technique is that high where he can find openings. I think it's going to be a scrap. I think Gary's going to have to eat shots. D-Rod is so clean with his boxing. Gary's going to have to show his toughness in this fight and prove that he's got that. But I also think there's going to be openings where he can take advantage. I think he can rip the legs of D-Rod. Like I said, he's a bit stationary at times. I think Garry can be the fighter who's more in and out. I think he is quicker. I think his hands may be quicker, which, again, is maybe a stretch because D-Rod's hands are so good. But I think Ian Garry can take these cards. I just think he's more creative, and he can find ways to change the fight as it's going if things are not going his way. I trust him more to figure it out live in the cage. I will say Ian Garry UD.
Let's see. In this case, I love the youth and athleticism of Ian Garry over Daniel Rodriguez. I think it's an 11-year difference of age.
Wow. Jeez.
Dude, D-Rod is a gamer, man, and he has great hands. He's a very talented striker, very talented boxer. In this case, I'm just going to go with the youth and the explosiveness and the athleticism of Ian Garry. And I'm going to say that Ian Garry finds a TKO, I'll say round 3.
That'd be big.
Or
I'm going to agree with Mike here. Actually, I think Ian Garry is a really good fighter. I think not a lot of people are going to give him the credit he deserves with his approach and his really good range management. We've seen him falter, which I think is going to be something to take into consideration going into this fight. But I do think it was one mistake in the fight. I think it was a mistake that he acknowledges, that he knows happened, and I think it's something that he's going to work to make sure it doesn't happen. I think some of the most dangerous guys when it comes to fighting are the ones who acknowledge their mistakes, right? Because the guy that knows what he did wrong knows how to fix it, or at least is going to find out. Guys who like to tell themselves, well, it was because of this, and this, and they make excuses for why certain things happen instead of trying to take some responsibility for the situation they were in or the decision that they made or whatever the case is. Those are the guys that, to me, tend to sometimes get left wanting because they don't see the issues that really led to that issue or that situation that they're in, and they'll blame it on a lot of other things. Ian Garry doesn't do that. Takes full responsibility for why things have happened to him, why he got caught with those shots or a shot, however you want to describe that fight. But my point is I think Ian Garry is just the better fighter here. I think he's more cerebral, and I think he's going to take it, man. And I do think that his volume catches up to people, and I think the crisper he is and the better he gets and the more comfortable he is in the octagon, I think it's going to continue to happen. I'm also going with third round TKO.
I thought I might be when I was picking him, I was like, I think I might be the only one who picks him. It feels weird that we're all off D-Rod because D-Rod is good.
He is good. He did not look great against Magny, though. I did not care for that performance personally.
Yeah.
I could be very wrong about this, and I could be made to look like a fool, but I just feel like this is a favorable matchup, a good matchup for Ian Garry to break into sort of the another higher level.
I agree. I mean, we all agree, it seems.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, moving on. Here we go. Co-main event, UFC Fight Night. In the light heavyweight division, we have Anthony Lionheart Smith taking on Johnny Walker. So, Anthony Smith, a 34-year-old out of Omaha, Nebraska. He is 36-17 as a pro. Almost every single one of those wins have come by way of finish. 19 knockouts, 14 submissions. He's looking to get back in the win column at 205 after a loss at the hands of Magomed Ankalaev. He will be standing across from the jovial but always dangerous Johnny Walker, the 31-year-old native to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He is 20-7 professionally with 16 knockouts and 3 submissions, only one of his wins coming by way of knockout. He's riding consecutive victories coming into this weekend over Ion Cutelaba and Paul Craig. Omar, start us off this time. Give us your take and your pick.
I will say, for the record, I would have to imagine Johnny Walker just might be the favorite. I don't know if it makes a whole hell of a lot of sense, but there is something about this fight. This fight, to me, is the hardest fight to pick out of the entire card, personally.
I'll tell you quickly that the odds agree with you because it is a dead even pick 'em. They're both minus 110.
Oh, they're both. See, I didn't think any one of them was going to go above 125, if at all. I figured Johnny Walker would be minus money here. But that's interesting that both of them are minus picks. And again, I'm not surprised. This is a very, very difficult fight to pick. This really could go either way. And the real issue is who shows up, right? We've seen the version of Johnny Walker that shows up and beats the shit out of people. We've seen the Johnny Walker that shows up and somehow beats the shit out of himself. We've seen the version of Anthony Smith that shows up and beats the shit out of people. We've seen the version of Anthony Smith that shows up and gets the shit kicked out of him. So it is a pick 'em because we've seen both extremes of these guys, and we've seen these extremes in recent memory. This is not like, this happened to Anthony Smith 6-7 years ago, but he's been looking good. No, this has been on and off again for both of these guys. And in a division that personally right now I think is very up for the taking. And both of these guys, man, have a real tendency to drop the bag when it's really necessary. I really don't know. I want to say Anthony Smith is probably the more technical fighter of the two, but there is a creativity and a fuckery to Johnny Walker that I think if he can hone in on it, he's very difficult to read. And we've seen time and time again that guys who are difficult in their movement and unorthodox in their approach just tend to throw guys off. And the fuckery of Johnny Walker, I think, is going to work. So I'm going to go with Johnny Walker here by a hard-fought, unanimous decision.
I will go next. Yeah, it's a tough fight to pick. The thing that tilts the scales for me is that Johnny Walker has made a resolution, it seems, to change his ways. He has put to bed the Joker, Johnny Walker. I had a professional interaction with his former manager, Lucas Lutkus, back when I did Torah back in 2020. And Lucas told me that he loved Johnny, but ultimately he left Johnny. He dropped Johnny because he's just too much of a joker. Doesn't take his fight seriously enough. But Johnny, obviously, his talent has taken him pretty far. But more recently, he got married recently, and I believe he has just made a vow or made an oath to himself to stop clowning so much and to start to take things a little bit more seriously, and I think it has been showing. So if we get that Johnny Walker, who definitely has shown that he does not have the best chin at 205 pounds, and Anthony Smith could definitely light his ass up. But I'm going to go with the athleticism and explosiveness and power of Johnny Walker to get it done over Anthony Smith. I will say he's going to finish Anthony Smith in round number 1.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Please don't beat me up, Anthony Smith. Please.
Again, I cannot believe we are unanimous. I never thought we'd all be on Johnny Walker. There's a 2-inch height and a 6-inch reach advantage on his side, which is big. You expect it in his fights generally, but that's big. I have been a believer in the turnaround of Johnny Walker. It's hit the point now where it's like, am I going to pick him against Anthony Smith? Because Anthony Smith's pretty fucking good.
Yeah, man.
We're here now. But I can't put my finger on exactly how Smith would win this fight. Because striking is going to be a dangerous proposition with the length and the power. And Smith does get hit. It's not like he's super evasive. And taking down a guy as big as Walker and trying to control him on the mat or work some subs is just not easy. He's an athlete. He's huge. We've seen the improvements in his own jiu-jitsu. I do think a 5-round fight, if this had ended up being a main event, would have favored Smith more because I don't trust Walker's cardio as much. But 3 rounds, I think he's live. And I don't know if Anthony Smith can play the game that he wants to play for enough of this fight against an athlete the size of Johnny Walker, who has made the improvements that we've been seeing in his game as much as Smith wants to play it. So I'm going to say Johnny Walker gets 2 of these rounds, 29-28 UD.
Nice.
Okie dokie. All right, main event time, boys. UFC Fight Night, Rozenstruik versus Almeida. We have heavyweight clash, Jairzinho, Biggie Boy Rozenstruik, taking on Jailton Maladinho Almeida. Rozenstruik, UFC veteran. He's the 35-year-old out of Suriname, 13-4. Only 1 win coming by way of decision. The other 12, all by knockout. He has been knocked out himself twice and defeated on the scorecards twice as well. He's coming off of a knockout win over Chris Daukaus in the first round back in December. He will be standing across from the rising Jailton Almeida, the 31-year-old out of Brazil. He's 18-2 as a pro, 7 knockouts, 11 submissions, which adds up to 18 wins, which means that all of his wins have been finishes. Oh boy. He is riding I don't know how many fight win streak because he only has 2 defeats, so he has won many in a row. He's undefeated thus far in the UFC, 4-0 in the UFC. Most recently, TKO second round over Shamil Abdurakhimov back in January of this year. Okay. Mark, why don't you start us off? Give us the odds, your take, and your pick.
They are wide. Almeida is a minus 525 favorite, and Rozenstruik is plus 385 as the dog. Here we go. Almeida is officially getting his chance to really break through into the mix here. We've seen the slow come up kind of for him where he's just walking through dudes. Despite being the former light heavyweight, he is 1 inch taller. He has a 1 inch reach advantage. And he is getting a guy in Rozenstruik who's literally twice as good as anyone else he's fought, which I think is maybe getting lost on people a little bit in this fight. Like, I get it. We've seen Almeida walking through everyone, but Rozenstruik is way better than the dudes that Almeida has fought to this point. I mean, his best opponent was Shamil Abdurakhimov, and Rozenstruik, and this was Abdurakhimov at the end. I'm sure if Rozenstruik fought Abdurakhimov right now, Abdurakhimov would be going to sleep. So it's definitely a step up. Almeida may have to eat some shots here if he plans to get this done. But with all that being said, I don't know how you can pick against Almeida at this point until you actually see a man get the better of him, which we have not. It's actually crazy to me that he has losses pre-UFC. That's how dominant he's looked. It feels like he should be an undefeated fighter. But as for the matchup, Rozenstruik obviously, very obviously, is going to be looking to stuff takedowns and force Almeida to throw hands with him. And the question is just going to be, can he do that? And it's hard to think that he can because we've seen him get taken down before. Granted, it's been by guys like Curtis Blades, who, as much of a beast as Almeida has been, you probably still trust Blades wrestling more. But I'm going to believe in Almeida. I'm going to believe he can do it until I see someone that shows me he can't. So I will say he gets him down. Maybe it's got to be more than once, but, whatever it takes, 1, 2, 3. I think he sets something up on the mat and finds a way to choke Rozenstruik out. I will say round 2 sub, Jailton Almeida.
I have the exact same pick. Just to make this quick, because we're having a little bit of technical difficulties here towards the end of our recording. To Mark's point, I couldn't have said it better myself. You got to go with Almeida till he loses, and he's going to be a grapple-heavy approach against a guy he's gonna basically tower over. I think he takes him down in the first round, doesn't finish him, but really punishes him, beats him up in the first round, gets him down again in the second round. Rozenstruik is going to have nothing left, and we're going to have a submission victory for Jailton Almeida round 2. Omar?
I think Almeida is a goddamn specimen, if we're being completely honest. The man is an absolute beast. I think he's kind of better everywhere, if we're being honest. I know Rozenstruik is known for his one-hit KO power, and that's like the equalizer and all this other shit. I don't think he's really going to be able to touch Almeida. I think Almeida is going to be way, way too fast for him. I think that the speed difference is going to be evident both in the movement as well as the actual strikes themselves. And I think Rozenstruik is going to have the wrong approach in the first round, and I think he's going to get caught for it early. I'm going to go with Almeida by KO round 1.
Wow.